Imagine waking up one day to find that the person you love, the one you've built your entire life around, isn't who you thought they were. What if a single secret, buried deep, could turn your fairy tale romance into a blood-soaked nightmare? In Atlanta, Georgia, David Carter thought he'd found his soulmate in Jasmine Moore. Their love was the kind that turned heads, the kind that made others believe in forever. But when David uncovered a truth so shocking it shattered his world, their perfect marriage ended in a murder so brutal it left even seasoned detectives speechless. This is the story of a secret that destroyed everything, and a crime that will haunt Atlanta forever. In the vibrant city of Atlanta, Georgia, where music, culture, and community intertwine, David Carter and Jasmine Moore met on a warm spring day in 2019 at a local church's annual community fair. David, a 32-year-old construction worker, was a man of quiet strength, tall and muscular, with a rugged charm. He carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from years of hard work. Raised in a strict, conservative household on Atlanta's South Side, David was steeped in traditional values. He believed in being the provider, the protector, a man who put family and community above all else. His friends called him the guy who'd drop everything to help you move or fix your car. David was solid. One coworker later said, he'd take care of everyone before thinking of himself. Beneath his tough exterior was a dreamer, yearning for a simple life, a loving wife, a cozy home, and a future filled with stability. Jasmine Moore, 28, was a vision. Tall, with a glowing brown complexion and dark eyes that sparkled with life, she turned heads wherever she went. Her infectious smile and warm laugh made her the heart of any room. As a hairstylist, Jasmine was carving out a name for herself in Atlanta's bustling beauty scene. Her salon was a haven of creativity, where clients left with more than a new hairstyle. They left feeling seen, heard, and loved. Jasmine had this gift, a regular client recalled. She made you feel like you were her best friend. It was at the church fair, amid the hum of live music and the scent of barbecue, that David and Jasmine's eyes met. Sparks flew instantly. David was drawn to her warmth, her laughter, her effortless grace. Jasmine saw in David a man who was steady, kind, and fiercely devoted. Their connection was magnetic, and within weeks, they were inseparable. David brought Jasmine to family cookouts, proudly showing her off as the one. His mother, a tough critic, adored her. His siblings teased him for how smitten he was. Jasmine just fit, his sister later told reporters. She was like one of us from day one. Their courtship was intense, a whirlwind of late-night talks, shared dreams, and stolen kisses under Atlanta's starry skies. Within a year, David proposed at Piedmont Park, under a canopy of twinkling lights. Jasmine, tears streaming down her face, said yes without hesitation. To their friends, family, and the Atlanta community, they were the couple everyone envied. A black love story that seemed destined for happily ever after. But even in those early days, there were cracks. At family gatherings, Jasmine would sometimes grow quiet, her gaze drifting to some unseen horizon. David, ever the optimist, brushed it off as shyness. She's just adjusting, he'd tell himself. But was she? What was Jasmine holding back, even as she smiled through the love surrounding her? On a sun-drenched June afternoon in 2020, David and Jasmine stood before 200 guests in a historic Baptist church in downtown Atlanta. The sanctuary glowed with candlelight, the air thick with anticipation. David, in a sharp black tuxedo, couldn't take his eyes off Jasmine as she glided down the aisle in a shimmering white gown. She looked like a vision, her beauty radiating through the room. But as she reached the altar, David noticed her hands trembling, her eyes flickering with something he couldn't name. Just wedding nerves, he thought, his heart swelling with love. The ceremony was flawless. Vows exchanged, tears shed, and applause erupting as they sealed their union with a kiss. The reception was a celebration of joy, with music pulsing through the venue and guests dancing late into the night. Atlanta's summer sun cast a golden glow over the couple, who seemed to embody the promise of forever. But there were moments, even that day, that hinted at something deeper. During the reception, Jasmine stepped away to take a hushed phone call, her face tense. When David asked about it, she flashed her signature smile and said it was a client checking on an appointment. He believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife, his partner, his everything. Their honeymoon was a lavish escape to the Caribbean. David spared no expense, booking a resort where turquoise waters met powdery white sand. They danced under the stars, swam in crystal-clear seas, and laughed like newlyweds should. But there were times when Jasmine seemed to pull away. She'd sit on their balcony, staring at the ocean, her eyes lost in thought. When David pressed her, she'd blame on homesickness or stress. "Don't worry, baby," she'd say, wrapping her arms around him. Her smile could melt his doubts, but the unease lingered. What was it that made Jasmine withdraw? Was it the weight of their new life together, or something she couldn't bring herself to share? David pushed the thoughts aside, determined to focus on their future. But the seeds of doubt were planted, and they were about to grow into something unstoppable. Back in Atlanta, David and Jasmine settled into a cozy home on the city's quiet outskirts. It was the kind of place David had always dreamed of, a small house with a tidy yard, perfect for starting a family. On weekends, he'd tinker in the garden while Jasmine worked on growing her salon business. To the outside world, they were living the American dream. But as weeks turned into months, the cracks in their marriage deepened. Jasmine became more secretive. She'd lock her phone when David entered the room, her fingers moving quickly to hide the screen. She started working late, claiming a surge in clients. But when David dropped by the salon to surprise her, he'd often find it empty. "I had a last-minute house call," she'd say, her smile tight. David's suspicions grew, but he didn't want to believe something was wrong. He loved Jasmine deeply, and the thought of her keeping secrets felt like a betrayal of everything they'd built. He'd lie awake at night, watching her sleep, wondering why she seemed so distant. Their intimacy dwindled, and when it did happen, it felt strained. Jasmine would turn away, avoiding his gaze, as if she were on the verge of saying something, but couldn't find the words. What do you do when the person you love starts to feel like a stranger? Could you confront them, or would you bury your doubts to protect the life you built? For David, the tension was becoming unbearable, a slow-burning fire that threatened to consume him. One fateful night in early 2021, David's doubts pushed him to cross a line he never thought he would. While Jasmine was out with friends, another vague girls' night that left him uneasy, he began searching through her things. He wasn't proud of it, but the weight of her secrecy was too much to bear. In the back of their closet, buried under piles of clothes, he found a small, locked box. His heart pounded as he pried it open. Inside were documents that made his blood run cold. A birth certificate bearing the name Isaiah Moore. Medical records detailing hormone treatments and surgeries. Jasmine, the woman he'd married, had been born male. She'd transitioned years ago and never told him. David's world stopped. The air seemed to vanish from the room. His hands trembled as he stared at the papers, his mind racing with questions. How could she have hidden this? Why didn't she trust him with the truth? Everything he thought he knew about their love, their marriage, felt like a lie. For David, raised with rigid beliefs about gender and family, this wasn't just a secret. It was a betrayal that cut to his core. He sat on their bed, the documents spread out like evidence of a crime, waiting for Jasmine to come home. Hours passed, the silence of their house broken only by the ticking of a clock. His anger grew, a storm building inside him. When Jasmine walked through the door that evening, she froze. Her eyes fell on the papers, her face draining of color. "You lied to me," David whispered, his voice trembling with rage. "Who are you, Jasmine? No, what are you?" Jasmine's heart sank. She'd always feared this moment, the day her past would catch up with her. She'd wanted to tell David, to find the right time, but fear of losing him had kept her silent. "David, please," she pleaded, stepping toward him, tears welling in her eyes. "I was going to tell you. I swear. I love you. This doesn't change who I am." But her words only fueled David's rage. "Doesn't change who you are," he shouted, his voice shaking the walls. "You've been lying to me this whole time. You tricked me into marrying you." Jasmine tried to explain, her voice breaking. "I didn't tell you because I was scared you wouldn't love me anymore. You're everything to me, David." David wasn't listening. His mind was a whirlwind of betrayal, confusion, and disgust. The woman he loved felt like a stranger, and the life he'd built seemed to crumble before his eyes. The argument escalated, voices rising, emotions spiraling out of control. Jasmine begged him to calm down, to talk it through, but David's anger was a live wire, unpredictable and dangerous. In a blind moment of rage, he stormed to the garage, his eyes landing on a hammer. He grabbed it, his hands shaking with fury, and returned to the bedroom, where Jasmine stood, frozen with fear. Without warning, he swung the hammer down with brutal force. Jasmine screamed, trying to shield herself, but David was relentless. Blow after blow, he struck her, her cries fading into silence. The walls of their home, once a symbol of love, were now splattered with blood. But David didn't stop. In a haze of madness, he dragged Jasmine's lifeless body to the bathroom, grabbing a kitchen knife. What followed was an act of unimaginable horror, slashing and mutilating her beyond recognition, as if trying to erase the truth he couldn't accept. When the police arrived, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. Blood soaked the walls and floor, the air thick with the stench of death. David sat beside Jasmine's mutilated body, covered in her blood, staring blankly as if he couldn't comprehend what he'd done. David called 911 himself, his voice hollow as he whispered, "I killed her." When officers broke through the door, they were met with a scene so gruesome that even seasoned detectives were shaken. Jasmine's body was barely identifiable, the brutality of the attack leaving the house forever stained. The news sent shockwaves through Atlanta. Neighbors gathered outside, horrified, as police lights bathed the quiet street in an eerie glow. The media descended, and soon the story was everywhere. Jasmine's transgender identity, David's rage, and the unimaginable violence that followed. At the police station, David sat in a white jumpsuit, his eyes hollow. "I loved her," he mumbled during interrogation. "But she lied to me. She wasn't who she said she was." The detective pressed him. "So you beat her to death and mutilated her? Do you realize what you've done?" David had no answer, his silence a testament to the weight of his actions. The trial gripped the nation. The defense argued emotional distress, claiming David had been pushed to the brink by the shock of Jasmine's secret. The prosecution called him a cold-blooded killer, driven by rage and prejudice. Jasmine's mother took the stand, her voice breaking as she said, "My daughter just wanted to be loved." She was afraid to tell him, but she hoped he'd accept her. Instead, he took her from us. The courtroom was silent as photos of the blood-soaked crime scene were shown. The jury, after weeks of testimony, returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. David showed no reaction, his face a mask of resignation as he was led away. Jasmine's death left a scar on Atlanta. Her friends launched the hashtag Justice for Jasmine movement, calling for greater protections for transgender people, especially Black trans women, who faced disproportionate violence. The house where she died was sold, but neighbors say it never felt the same. David's family struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the monster he'd become. The tragic story of Jasmine Moore and David Carter is more than a tale of love gone wrong. It's a stark reminder of how secrets, fear, and societal pressures can collide with devastating consequences. Jasmine wanted to live her truth, to be loved for who she was, but paid the ultimate price. David, consumed by betrayal and rage, destroyed not just her life but his own. Their story leaves us with questions that echo long after the headlines fade. How far does trust go in a relationship? What happens when love is tested by a truth too heavy to bear? And how can we build a world where people like Jasmine don't have to live in fear? Jasmine's death sparked the hashtag Justice for Jasmine movement, shining a light on the violence faced by Black trans women and calling for change. Her life, though cut short, continues to inspire those fighting for acceptance and safety. As for David, he'll spend the rest of his days behind bars, a man haunted by the horror he unleashed. What do you think drove David to such unimaginable violence? Was it betrayal, societal expectations, or something deeper within him? And what can we learn from Jasmine's courage and tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to True Crime Vault HQ, and ring the bell so you never miss a deep dive into the cases that shock, challenge, and change us.